My guest today is Nishtha Mehta, an innovation enabler and collaboration strategist who has spent over 20 years living and working in China. Nishtha began her career in advertising at Ogilvy and has since worked across industries from beauty and FMCG to health tech and retail, helping Fortune 500 companies drive digital transformation and leadership development. A single parent and an Indian professional in China, Nishtha brings a unique cross cultural perspective to her work. She is also an active mentor in the international startup ecosystem and the founder of CollabCentral, where she focuses on bridging silos and building strong ecosystem through open collaborations. What stood out for me most was her ability to stay grounded while navigating change with her quiet strength and clarity of purpose. Hi, Nishtha. Very warm welcome to Atlanta Diaries.
Thank you so much, Enma. Pleasure to be here. Very inspired by your initiative and listening to so many interesting women.
So let's start with your early years. So, Nishtha, was this something or someone in those early years who planted the seed for the life you've built? I mean, the word that comes to my mind is courage.
So you read me right. Courage really defines me. So my parents left their jobs at the peak of their jobs, actually in their 30s. My father coming from engineering, my mom journalist. Both of them quit their jobs, took the risk, and they said, we want a better life for our kids. Why don't we take a risk and start our own entrepreneur setup? So my parents started working together. And in that journey, when I reached college, and I was doing my graduation from Delhi University, my parents asked me one day, so what are you doing after your classes lunchtime? What do you do in college? I said, no, nothing. We're just hanging around. Okay, that stops from tomorrow. And this was first year of my college. You'll be coming to our office and you'll be working. You might have an opportunity to earn some pocket money, but you have no choice. You're coming and working with us. And the next day I went and my mom said, well, you have a cameraman. You and the cameraman have to go around Delhi, and your job is to find stories affecting young Delhiites, and we will make it into documentary film. And also my mom added, you can make mistakes, Nishtha, no problem, but find stories. And that really defined me today. As you can see, take the risk at the peak of you doing well, not necessarily when things are going wrong.
That actually answers a lot of things. So, before we begin further, there are two things that stood out for me. One is the name you've given to your organization, Collab Central. I thought that was very intriguing. So, what does it stand for? What's your mission? And, maybe before that, give us a snapshot of your career journey.
It's interesting because I don't see career as being linear. So I see it as a portfolio of choices. And Collapse Central to me is my entrepreneur journey, which started off exactly 14 years ago. And for me, growth wasn't about the title. I left at the peak of my career at that moment. But what I thought I was not getting from myself is my upskilling. Am I really building new capabilities to be relevant for the next 5 years? And as I was brainstorming and going through my notes, I have a habit of taking notes in a diary on my ideas. And I figured, what is my value proposition? And one of the value proposition I hit upon is using the ecosystem to enable each other. And I started interviewing some of my ex-clients. And I said, what do you think you value in me? Because I was freelancing for a while before I started Collab Central. And most of the clients had a similar word. You're very good at connecting the dots. You're very good at leveraging and filling the gaps by leveraging the ecosystem experts. So that motivated me to say, you know what? Every mission I will take up, I will leverage the collaborative ecosystem experts to drive that mission forward. And that's where I named it. But it's really not a company name. I think it's the way I operate, the way I think. So people can start thinking and operating collaboratively.
Do you think you can share any example on how you've used this approach with any client?
So I had a brief from a client about 7 years ago. It's Unilever. So the brief was, we have a mission where about 155 leaders from 22 countries or 20 countries across the globe will come to China on a mission to learn on the digital transformation and capability building insights from the Chinese ecosystem. And we have a day and a half, 2 days with them. And one of the KPIs they gave me is time. They trusted me on delivering the program, the mission, the immersion. We should visit the top digital startup ecosystem founders. We should visit the top companies like Tencent, etc. And not just visit them, but we have to learn from them. At the same time, you need to make sure everybody returns to the hotel by 7 p.m. sharp. And it is not a workshop in a conference room. This is all like an expedition into the market. And I spoke to a colleague, and I was told by my colleague, Nishtha, it's a big risk. Don't take it. You might not be able to deliver. And if somebody says that it's a huge risk and you might fail, Nishtha, that actually works the other way around for me. I'm like, I will take this risk now. And honestly, I didn't make money on this project. I still remember. And the way I operated my entire project was that I hired 5 equally strong facilitators like myself, very experienced. 3 of them I paid more than I paid myself on this project. I literally paid nothing to myself, but I made sure I'm getting the best. I was responsible for the whole design of the program, but I leveraged them. Then I had another layer of ecosystem partners where I orchestrated the best startups, the best tech companies to become partners. Then I hired one of the best local Chinese logistics project management expert who was 10 years younger to me, but I paid her as much as I paid myself because I knew I can trust her. So I basically put together a task force team of 15 people. And in short, we delivered. And I actually take the client team and make them part of my team and make sure their capabilities are rising as well. And if I become redundant in the next project, I'm fine with that. I'll move on to next clients, next missions.
Interesting. So let's shift gears and talk about China then. How come China, Nishtha, and what brought you to China in the first place?
Yeah. I mean, as you can imagine, that's the number one question I get. So I guess my first thought is it wasn't accidental, it was intentional. When I came here 20 years ago, I was fairly young, mid 20s, let's say. And me and my husband at that time decided that we should explore working together outside of India just to gain experience. And we said, whoever gets the opportunity first, the other will support and follow and get a job in that country. He got the opportunity first while I was still exploring, and we got Middle East, Dubai, and Shanghai at the same time. And somehow I had this mindset 20 years ago, maybe in Dubai, I might not be able to work, or maybe it will not be, but that's still known. And Shanghai is so unknown. We have never met anybody in our ecosystem that time who had worked in the East outside of Singapore and Hong Kong and Japan, Tokyo. So we said, you know what? It feels very unknown. What do we have to lose? We are still young. Let's explore. So we just jumped right in. We didn't get a chance to do recce. We didn't get a chance to weigh in too much. So that was that taking the chance in an absolute unknown is how China happened. We literally had 48 hours. I still remember 48 hours to respond, yes or no. I'm like, what's there to lose? And of course, that time with my husband, I mean, luckily we were thinking the same thing. And we took the opportunity. And I must say, after 20 years, this country has given us a lot. And of course, we have given back to this country a lot and to every country I worked with.
So at that point, you did not have a job. Talk to us about how did you then feel in the beginning? How did you find your space in China?
Yeah. So the interesting part, I never thought I took a break, in my mind at least. So I got a recommendation letter from the country head that time in India. And I thought when I walked into China that, oh, it'll be a cakewalk because I've been recommended and I can just transition. I just had to reapply on paper and interview, obviously, again. But I got a shock when I came here. I was rejected because I was applying from advertising in Mumbai to advertising in Shanghai. And what is advertising? creative, messaging, proposition, story, all of that requires nuance understanding, language spoken and understanding of Chinese language. So I was said, sorry, but we can't accept you in this advertising role. And I was like, okay. I come from that school of thought and upbringing that if I'm in advertising and media, I have to work with Ogilvy. I have to work with the best people. That was my mindset that time. And I took a step back and I thought, well, if advertising department cannot hire me, is there some other department who would like to hire me? And I did not try for any other agency or company. I went around, and in China, especially, you can't just cold walk in as well. You need somebody to introduce you. That's the culture. So I found a couple of people and I said to one, could you introduce me to the digital wing, the CRM wing of Ogilvy, which is Ogilvy One? And long story short, I got a chance to meet the MD that time, and he had just come from a client briefing. And he was distracted, I think, but he was kind enough to say, look, I really don't have time to interview you today, as promised, but I have this client brief, which I have been asked to respond to in 2 days. Could you also attempt a response? That was my interview. I had to go back home, prepare a response, and come and pitch the next day to the MD and the BD director. And I guess I had some decent response, which they could use for the client. And I got a job offer within 1 hour of that meeting. It took 1.5 months, and I used to cry every day. I almost thought, did I make a mistake? Should I have had a job before I move? But then, I think that's where you have to play up in your head that I'm still working. I'm not nobody. I have education, I have some skills, I have some experience. Let me make the most of that and pitch myself in a different way.
On another note, you came to China married, but later found yourself navigating it as a single parent, right? That must have been even harder. So, what kept you from moving back? What made you stay? What made you rebuild? What kind of emotions did you go through? Those are the thoughts which come to my mind.
So I came into China in a foreign country with a relationship, yes. But I stayed in this country because I thought I also have to show up for myself and show up for my child. I obviously was not very new. So if you're very new, you might have second thoughts. I had a bit of space, but the ecosystem had changed completely. When you're on your own, you have a different set of friends and a different set of ecosystem. When you have a child, you have a little bit different set of ecosystem. So yeah, also I thought if I just pack my bag because the equation is 1-to-1 with my child rather than 1-to-2, if you have two parents raising one child, then what example am I setting to be resilient? So that was my motivation. And I had to challenge myself to continue, uh, let's be honest, to fund myself and fund my child and the life we wanted. I was scared. I was scared if I go back, will there be a period of restarting from scratch and will I have to take more help than I needed to? So a bit of avoiding that and being scared motivated me to build and take on my resilience muscles.
That means you did think of going back, but the pros and cons of staying on were way more than the pros and cons of going back.
I mean, I'm a human as well. I got scared, not just 10 years ago. I got scared again during COVID, like many people all over the world. As an entrepreneur, I have had lots of ups and downs on work, on personal front, on a lot of fronts. But I have trained myself mentally that it's okay when challenge comes, you fall down, or let's say you sit down, you cry, you accept it, you take a moment, but you hit back to continue with your life. Because I guess it's my upbringing again with the values of you have got a chance to be a human. You're here for a reason. You must have done some good karma. So therefore, let's not waste that. And I'll also be honest, I'm not scared of death. I know I might go into a very different realm of conversation, which we can pause, but I've thought about this. I like, what else is to lose? I can lose money, I can lose a lot of things, but what I know I can't lose is my values. So yeah, if I'm not afraid of that, then just take the risk and go on.
A lot to reflect on. Share with us those setbacks and how did you then overcome them?
So, yes, it's not so much about setback, but a life lesson, I guess. So, I'll take a real COVID example, where in any foreign country, you need a work permit, right? And I was obviously going steady, even with the ups and downs, things were going good. And during COVID, the rules became stricter, right? With the work permit, etc. And during COVID, three of my projects at the same time, the clients decided to pause or postpone or cancel. So there was a period of 3 months where, let's say, zero revenue. Yeah, I mean, there are people who had no revenue for months together. But that scared me. And I knew I have to maintain my work permit. And I just found projects where some clients were not willing to pay in China. They were just willing to pay me internationally in my outside China account. But because I had to prove a revenue in China, I found ways very transparently, and these are international brands, to somehow pay me, change my contract. So can you imagine the patience you need to change contract with international clients all over again and to get paid into China and to then follow the whole legal process of converting your fairly earned international funds into China and then show the government that you're actually getting paid here. So that was one huge challenge, which continued for a year almost. So, on a personal front as well, one of the setback or challenge was, when the equation was changing, my child was also going through school transition. And I was late, in that pursuit of multitasking, trying to manage family, child, home, work. I think I missed to enroll him on time. And when I did, we were rejected. And I still remember outside the school when I said to the teacher, to the principal, I almost begged because I had no other option left. And they said, sorry, you're really late. Have a look at the sheet. There is no vacancy. And I'm talking about somebody like me who I thought I check on everything. I'm very planned. And I missed, am I such a bad parent? Because I was focusing on my work, to fund our life and everything. I cried. I cried and I howled by myself outside the school. I'm like such a bad parent. But guess what, Enma? After 30 minutes, I had to accept that I made the mistake and I need to find a way. And I had to knock on a door of a different school, which I couldn't afford. It was 30% more. But I found a way. I stretched myself, but I just went ahead and I enrolled him in a different school. My son was unhappy. He had a worst time of his life. He used to cry every day that I'm not enjoying the school. And he's a vegetarian, by the way, like me. So you see, the point is, it's okay. Things happen. And then I learned a life lesson that I have nobody to blame. Accept it, pay a premium if you need to, do something, and move on.
So you said that while you paid a premium to put your son in that school, yet he wasn't happy. So I think, one was the mother's guilt. Now it could be mother's anger saying, I'm paying more money and yet you're not happy. So I'm wondering, how did you help him reframe his perspective or did he just deal with it?
It's interesting. I mean, I had a deal with him. Let's swing through this period together.
Hmm.
Fairly young compared to today at that time. This was like 8 years ago. And I said, let's swing through this 1 year together because we have committed to this 1 year. We have no other school. And Mama is stretching. So you are in this together with Mama. Let's make the most of it. And what you like, you leverage. What you don't like, we'll find a way. So, for example, two things. One, he didn't like the food at all. And my son is very low maintenance in the sense he will eat whatever comes his way. And he eats not just vegetarian, but pretty healthy as well. He's into football, sports, etc. So I said, you know what? Even though I'm paying extra for the food for the school, I will find a way to arrange food from home. Honestly, I did not like it because that meant that I have to wake up even earlier and I'm already grinding at work. But of course, in China, you can get help. So I got help and we found a way to sort that issue out. And the other thing is sports. Despite paying a premium, there was no place in school to play proper football. So I found a way to support him with outside school football training. So I think the point is that we just have to have an open conversation. And I gave him choices. And I'm a big believer of giving your child choices, this and this. You choose because that's all I can do. That's what I was brought up as well. You can't get everything in life. And when you give a choice to the child, then they stick to that.
Nice. I like that story a lot. Almost like the CollabCentral started over there, right? So collaboration with your son and let's together partner and figure out how to make this happen.
Yeah. And that gave me the opportunity to also involve him in everything. So I'll give you a simple example. Despite the fact that I have a help at home, even though she's part-time now, she used to be full-time. I pretty much made sure on weekends my son and I are cooking together. The second thing is I involve him in my work a lot. So every opportunity on weekends after 4 p.m., if there's anything which I can bring him along for my work, he is part of it. So, December of 2024, I had a business trip to Greece. I took the courage to actually call up my client, a fairly senior client, and I said, would that be okay that I actually bring along my son because it's winter vacation going on for him? And he's not just tagging along to wait for me in the hallway. Can I please involve him in the meetings? He will take meeting minutes and he will be the one to take notes. And guess what? The client was more than happy. And this is a corporate client. It is a very reputable, big corporate client who allowed me to involve my son on a work mission.
I love that, Nishtha. What is standing out, and it's something which is so up my alley too, is that you have nothing to lose
Hmm.
because, naysayers are there everywhere. I think figure out how rather than saying not possible is what is standing out for me. You spoke about how your parents or your, sort of gave you those value systems. But I'm also wondering, since you went through these different high and low points in your journey, talk to me about people who, cheerled you in this journey and what kind of naysayers came your way, if at all, and how did you tackle those naysayers?
So, a couple of naysayer examples comes to my mind. One of them is about 9 or 10 years ago when I was in that phase of the dynamics changing of the family. Everybody, even when I was here in China or friends or family, even though I didn't have to talk, I didn't have to open my mouth and explain anything. The first thing would be just come back to India with your parents. Nothing wrong with that advice. But the interesting part, Enma, is that people are very quick to give advice, but nobody wants to ask you anything.
That's so.
How are you feeling? How are you? Of course, close friends and family for sure ask. I mean, I've had amazing, amazing set of friends and family. But I think the advice comes faster than a listening ear, right? And so, like, just go back. Why are you here? Why are you here alone? I mean, what is it there to be alone? I don't understand. What is the definition of being alone? I feel we are not alone in today's world. Even if you have 2 or 3 people who are close to you, I don't need too many people around me. I'm a very private person in my private life, and I have just very, very close few friends and family. And I think definition of alone is very different. So I can be alone in my house with my dog and my son and my helper, but I'm not alone spiritually with everybody connected. So I think for everything any naysayer will say, I just smile. That's my natural instinct. Great. But I guess I need to continue carving my life and continue to grow. And wherever the growth opportunity comes, I will be there. Just because I'm in China doesn't mean I'm only serving China. Actually, 50% of my work is outside China today. So for me, I just happen to be based in Shanghai, but I'm actually working with Europe, with US, with Southeast Asia, with India. So I'm not alone. I'm connected to the rest of the world, actually.
So, what was China like? Like a cultural insight? How is it different from India? I know a lot of questions come to my mind. What is about China which has held you there?
Hmm, interesting. Actually, I believe I'm country agnostic. You know how people stay in Bangkok or even in Mumbai or in
Yes,
Lisbon, Portugal, and they say, you know what, we are nomadic, we are serving across the world.
exactly.
So why not Shanghai? That's the logic I have.
Yeah.
And of course, there are reasons why I still chose to be in Shanghai. I'll come to that. But I think the first is being country agnostic. I believe let's focus on skills rather than roles, right? Or the country, because you can be based anywhere in the world. You can have whatever role, but what are the skills that you're bringing value to the work you're doing? And I think I focus on skills. My biggest strength, of course, which I've consciously polished over time, I didn't have it naturally, is facilitation skills. So, as a facilitator, as a change facilitator, driving innovative leadership capabilities, coaching, I'm able to deliver online or offline if I have to travel to Europe, travel to India, travel within China to deliver. It's just coincidence that I'm still in Shanghai because over time, this country has given us a space which is very safe. It's close to what 11:30 p.m. So I don't drive here. I drive everywhere in the world when I travel, but I don't drive here because the Uber equivalent Didi is very convenient and safe. But tonight, when I go back after this podcast, I'm actually thinking of cycling back. I live about 3 kilometers from here. And if I'm saying I'll cycle back with the public bicycles, with the confidence that it is probably the safest place in the world today. My son has been traveling by subway since he was 8 years old, alone. Of course, I'm very, very on top of things and I'm in touch with him back and forth from school. So, safety is one. Respect is another. I have never felt in a foreign country, especially China, because a lot of people have judgments in other countries about China. Never as an Indian or as a foreigner, I felt anything less than a human respect. So, safe, respect, focusing on professional value rather than personal. So people just see what value are you bringing and not look at who you are as much. And the fourth reason, Enma, is China is definitely a place on the cutting edge of technology, AI, transformation, and exactly the space I operate in. So if I can bring value to my clients outside and make them collaborate on missions, why not? And the most important reason is I get a lot of opportunities to work with cross nation cultures. So I must be working on an average in a week with at least 6 to 7 nationalities. And in my 20 years, I must have worked on deep projects with 30 plus nationalities. So Shanghai is very open when it comes to collaborating a lot of missions.
Wow, that's a wonderful cultural education session. You also spoke about navigating so many different cultures in a sense, right? So, how did you adapt to different cultures? Because that is a reality. If you're able to adapt and recognize that cultures collide and not just, cultures don't, I think is a big win.
Yeah. One interesting story comes to my mind. When I started off independent, when I left my full time corporate job and became independent and started my own entrepreneur journey to serve as a consultant slash facilitator, the biggest culture shock was I was working on a project with UK and I was partnering with a client in the UK and a consultant. And I was advised by the partner there, do not start any work until the contract is signed. And it went on for weeks. We were just waiting for the client and back and forth. And I couldn't start, even though I was hungry and itching. Let's start something. Let's do some market research. Let's just start thinking about the project to get in the groove. I was told, no, no, no. If you spend any time, it will not be compensated. Don't start anything. On the contrary, the opposite of that happens in China. 90% of my projects and missions in the last 14 years as an entrepreneur, I have started the work before the contract is signed. You give trust to receive trust with the intention that there is some understanding.
Yeah.
Going to happen. Of course, you take a risk in a way sometime. And I've had projects many times, even with multinationals, where the fees has come 3 months later, 6 months later. One of the reasons I believe I have built some decent goodwill with my clients for repeat projects or collaboration is that I help them co-create the brief. I start giving value. I start listening. And in the process, the contracts get finalized because, the process takes time. So that is my one little anecdote of culture.
You also mentioned that you're a vegetarian, right? And living in China again, whether it's a myth or it's a reality, the worry is always, oh my God, what am I going to eat? So talk to us about that journey. Like, how did you actually figure out, or is it just a myth?
No, no, it's a fact. But I'll give you a real story which happened to me, especially the first 10 years, because now it's easy. Shanghai is like the New York of the East, literally. You just need to know in Chinese how to order vegetarian. So, one cultural context to this vegetarian, in China, like in many Asian countries, a meal is a very important space for relationship building, not just with friends, but business relationships, right? And when I was working in corporate, it was more often that we had to go for business dinner sometimes with clients or teams. And I would find myself, when I didn't speak Chinese fluently, in a very odd position because it's rude not to eat if somebody offers you.
Yes, saving face.
And I found two, three simple things. I would pre align and say, you know what, I would just like to eat just one vegetable, one plain rice, and one cucumber. Just make sure you can help me order because, you have to maintain that respect because people eat around the table, like a circular table. So find your ally. And guess what? They're super friendly, they're very supportive. And it reached a point that pretty much everybody in my company or in my client ecosystem knew I'm a vegetarian. So it so happened that before I could sit, they had already ordered vegetarian for me. So a lot of respect and empathy I have found as a foreigner.
And you did say before I learned Chinese. Talk to us about that journey. How easy or difficult was it, and how did you go about it?
Well, I wish my Chinese was way better than what it is. After 20 years, I don't read and write. And honestly, I did not see that a game changer at that time. So I adopted a strategy of just getting myself invited to meetings. That was my first strategy. I told all my team members because they assumed, oh, my boss, my supervisor doesn't need to sit in this Chinese meetings. She will not understand. We'll just give her a summary. And I was like, no, please invite me or I'll invite myself and let me sit. I will pre align certain things and I will not disturb the meeting because, you have to respect, give space to your team as well. I sat in meetings consciously and I had a very good arrangement with my team until today with my clients that I will set the expectation in the beginning and I'll say, I'll raise my hand if I don't understand part of the conversation because I can understand about 80% of the conversation in Chinese. For the remaining 20%, can I please raise my hand and clarify? So we end up having bilingual meetings now.
Mm.
I'm not here to compete on language with anybody. I'm here to complement with any skills which can make the parts a full whole and deliver a good value on any project.
And how did you pick up that 80% of the language?
One is by sitting in those meetings, inviting myself and listening in, clarifying, and picking up. Number two, of course, when I was in between my corporate job, this is like 14 years ago, and being an entrepreneur, I enrolled myself in a local university and I used to go for evening classes. It was tough because my son was like just 1 year old. And every day I remember 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., I used to go to the university. And after 3 months, I thought I'm a very bad parent. I have to stop this. So I took a break and then I continued listening to apps and podcasts in Chinese just to improve. I think at the end of the day, it's about real life experiences and putting yourself in that situation to have a conversation, even broken conversation, which led me to practice and become fluent.
Looking back and given your interesting journey in Shanghai, what advice would you give to someone who's about to move to a foreign country alone?
When we travel, so travel really opens our eyes. And I'm sure you travel a lot as well. I think my observation is that our lives is a sum of choices. So you should actually practice and learn to put forth all the choices in front of you and see what choice can you make and grab that choice. So that choice could be moving to X country, Y country, moving to a new role, moving to upskilling yourself, moving to experimenting with something. Make that choice and go for it. Because either you can wait or you can innovate. Otherwise, you'll become redundant.
Thank you very much, Nishtha. This was a great place to end the conversation. Make choices, be proactive, plan, and not wait for hell to break loose, is what I'm taking away from this. And Nishtha, I know you've shared a lot of life lessons all through our conversation. But if you were to write your own mantra, like if you had to summarize it, one that guided your choices or helped you take those decisions, what would that be?
I would say the source of my happiness today, I think, as far as I remember, is I'm a very active volunteer. When I say volunteer, I'm talking about 15% of my time on an average for the last 12 years is giving back to the community in multiple ways. So I think my mantra is pay it forward, because when you share it, it becomes a gift. So every free time I have, I will give back, whether it's enabling in the Indian Association of China, where it's enabling the digital tech community, startup ecosystem. I'm giving back my time, because in the process, you learn from others.
Thank you very much, Nishtha. This has been a fascinating conversation.
Thank you so much, Enma. Pleasure. See you soon.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, do hang on for just one more minute. I have a request for you. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Atlanta Diaries on Spotify, iTunes, or whichever platform you follow. Do join us in our mission to empower and inspire by sharing the podcast with a friend or colleague. It will be great if you can share on the social media platforms you follow, be it LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or any other. Please leave a review or rating on iTunes or Spotify. It really helps us reach a wider audience. Lastly, I wanted to share with you that many of my coaching clients and listeners have created a cheat sheet with their key takeaways from the episodes. I invite you to consider jotting down one or two key takeaways as you navigate your amazing journey. Have a wonderful rest of the day and see you next week for another inspiring journey on Atlanta Diaries.